Let us continue with your government exam preparation series. This is SS1 Topic 10, the final topic for the first term. We are discussing delegated legislation. This topic appears in your exams every single year. By the end of this lesson, you will understand the meaning of delegated legislation, the reasons for delegated legislation, the forms of delegated legislation, the controls over delegated legislation, the advantages and disadvantages of delegated legislation, and how to answer exam questions. Take your notes. Let us go. First, what is delegated legislation? Delegated legislation is law made by a person or body to whom the legislature has delegated its lawmaking power. The legislature, which is the Parliament or National Assembly, is the supreme lawmaking body, but the legislature cannot make every law itself. There are too many laws to make. Some laws are too technical. Some laws need to be changed quickly, so the legislature passes a Parent Act. The Parent Act gives power to a minister, a local government, or a government agency to make detailed rules. These rules are called delegated legislation. Delegated legislation is also called subordinate legislation, secondary legislation, or administrative legislation. For example, the National Assembly passes a law about road safety. The law says that the Minister of Transport can make regulations about speed limits, seatbelts, and road signs. When the minister makes those regulations, they have the force of law. They are delegated legislation. Another example, the National Assembly passes a law about education. The law gives the power to the Ministry of Education to make rules about school curriculum, teacher qualifications, and examinations. Those rules are delegated legislation. Now let me explain the reasons for delegated legislation. Why do legislatures delegate their lawmaking power? The first reason is lack of parliamentary time. The legislature has many laws to pass. It cannot spend hours debating every small detail. Delegated legislation allows the legislature to focus on major principles. The details are left to ministers and agencies. The second reason is technical expertise. Many laws are highly technical. They involve science, engineering, or economics. Members of Parliament may not have the expertise to write these rules. Ministers and civil servants have experts on their staff. They can write rules that are technically sound. The third reason is speed. Parliament moves slowly. Bills must go through many readings and debates. Delegated legislation can be made quickly. In an emergency, the government can act fast. For example, during a disease outbreak, health regulations must be issued immediately. Parliament cannot wait weeks to debate. The fourth reason is flexibility. Delegated legislation can be changed easily. If a rule is not working, the minister can amend it. The minister does not need to pass a new law through Parliament. This makes government more adaptable. The fifth reason is local knowledge. Some matters are best handled at the local level. Local governments know their communities better than the national parliament. Delegated legislation allows local authorities to make rules that fit local conditions. The sixth reason is reducing the workload of Parliament. Parliament already has too much to do. Delegated legislation shifts some of the work to other bodies. This allows Parliament to focus on more important issues. The seventh reason is anticipation of unforeseen circumstances. No law can predict every situation. Delegated legislation allows ministers to fill in gaps as new situations arise. The eighth reason is efficiency. Ministers and civil servants can write rules more efficiently than Parliament. They have the staff and resources to research and draft regulations. Now let me explain the forms of delegated legislation. There are several types. Orders in council are made by the head of state on the advice of the cabinet. They are used for matters of national importance. Examples include declaring a state of emergency or transferring functions between ministries. Statutory instruments are the most common form. They are made by government ministers. They cover a wide range of topics, from traffic regulations to health and safety rules. Bylaws are made by local governments and public corporations. They apply only within their area. Examples include local government rules about markets, parks, and parking. Rules of court are made by the judiciary. They regulate court procedures. Examples include rules about filing documents, time limits, and court fees. Regulations are another form. They are made by government agencies and regulatory bodies. They often require publication in the official gazette. Orders are directives issued by ministers. They can be general or specific. An order might close a road or prohibit the import of certain goods. Directions are instructions given to a specific body or person. They are a narrow form of delegated legislation. Now let me explain the controls over delegated legislation. Delegated legislation must be controlled. Otherwise, ministers could make laws without any oversight. There are two types of controls: parliamentary controls and judicial controls. Parliamentary controls are exercised by the legislature. The first parliamentary control is the Enabling Act. The Parent Act defines what the minister can do. It sets limits. The minister cannot go beyond those limits. The second parliamentary control is laying before Parliament. Many delegated laws must be laid before Parliament. They are placed on the table for members to see. The third parliamentary control is negative resolution. If Parliament does not approve the delegated law within a certain time, it lapses. Parliament can reject it by passing a negative resolution. The fourth parliamentary control is affirmative resolution. Some delegated laws must be actively approved by Parliament. They do not take effect until Parliament votes yes. This is stronger than negative resolution. The fifth parliamentary control is the Scrutiny Committee. Many parliaments have a committee that reviews delegated legislation. The committee checks whether the minister has exceeded their powers. The committee can recommend that Parliament annul the law. The sixth parliamentary control is the power to annul. Parliament can pass a resolution annulling a delegated law. This cancels the law. Judicial controls are exercised by the courts. The first judicial control is the doctrine of ultra vires. Ultra vires means beyond the powers. If a minister makes a rule that goes beyond the powers granted by the Parent Act, the courts can declare it void. This is called substantive ultra vires. The second judicial control is procedural ultra vires. If the minister fails to follow the required procedure, the courts can strike down the rule. For example, if the Parent Act requires consultation before making rules, and the minister does not consult, the rule is invalid. The third judicial control is unreasonableness. If a rule is so unreasonable that no reasonable minister would make it, the courts can strike it down. This is called Wensbury unreasonableness. Now let me explain the advantages of delegated legislation. These are the positive aspects. The first advantage is saving parliamentary time. Parliament does not have to debate every small detail. It can focus on major issues. The second advantage is technical expertise. Delegated legislation allows experts to write rules. The rules are better informed by technical knowledge. The third advantage is speed. Delegated legislation can be made quickly. In an emergency, the government can act fast. The fourth advantage is flexibility. Delegated legislation can be changed easily. If a rule is not working, it can be amended without a new law. The fifth advantage is local knowledge. Local governments can make rules that fit local conditions. They know what their communities need. Now let me explain the disadvantages of delegated legislation. These are the negative aspects. The first disadvantage is the risk of abuse. Ministers may make laws that Parliament never intended. They may exceed their powers. The second disadvantage is lack of scrutiny. Most delegated laws are not debated in Parliament. They become law without any discussion. The third disadvantage is complexity. There is so much delegated legislation that it is hard to find and understand. Citizens may not know what the law is. The fourth disadvantage is subversion of parliamentary sovereignty. Delegated legislation allows the executive to make law. This weakens the legislature. In theory, the legislature is supreme. In practice, the executive makes most laws. The fifth disadvantage is lack of publicity. Delegated laws are not as widely reported as acts of Parliament. Citizens may not know that a new law has been made. The sixth disadvantage is the difficulty of control. Parliament has many delegated laws to review. The Scrutiny Committee is understaffed. Many laws slip through without proper review. The seventh disadvantage is the potential for bias. Ministers may use delegated legislation to benefit their friends or punish their enemies. A common exam question asks you to define delegated legislation and explain the reasons for it. Here is a sample answer. Delegated legislation is law made by a person or body to whom the legislature has delegated its lawmaking power. The reasons for delegated legislation include lack of parliamentary time, need for technical expertise, need for speed, need for flexibility, local knowledge, reducing Parliament's workload, anticipating unforeseen circumstances, and efficiency. These reasons make delegated legislation necessary in modern government. Another exam question asks you to describe the forms of delegated legislation. Here is your answer. The forms include orders in council, statutory instruments, bylaws, rules of court, regulations, orders and directions. Orders in council are made by the head of state. Statutory instruments are made by ministers. Bylaws are made by local governments. Rules of court are made by the judiciary. Each form has its own purpose and procedure. Another exam question asks you to explain the controls over delegated legislation. Here is your answer. Controls are parliamentary and judicial. Parliamentary controls include the Enabling Act, laying before Parliament, negative resolution, affirmative resolution, scrutiny committees, and power to annul. Judicial controls include the doctrine of ultra vires, procedural ultra vires, and unreasonableness. Courts can strike down delegated legislation that exceeds the powers granted by the Parent Act. Another exam question asks you to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of delegated legislation. Here is your answer. The advantages include saving parliamentary time, technical expertise, speed, flexibility, and local knowledge. The disadvantages include risk of abuse, lack of scrutiny, complexity, subversion of parliamentary sovereignty, lack of publicity, difficulty of control, and potential for bias. Despite its disadvantages, delegated legislation is necessary in modern government because Parliament cannot do everything itself. Here is what you need to take away. Delegated legislation is law made by bodies to whom Parliament has delegated power. Reasons include lack of time, need for expertise, speed, flexibility, and local knowledge. Forms include orders in council, statutory instruments, bylaws, and rules of court. Controls include parliamentary oversight and judicial review through ultra vires. Advantages include efficiency and expertise. Disadvantages include risk of abuse and lack of scrutiny. Understanding delegated legislation is essential for understanding how modern governments actually make laws. This is the final topic for SS1 first term. Review all 10 topics. Practice past questions. You are ready for your exam. Good luck.